Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we've got a collaborative album from Czarface and MF Doom called Czarface Meets Metal Face. But as you can tell by my headphone jack here, this is a review. I just couldn't do this alone. So, welcome on board, coming back to the channel. I think it's been about a year. Welcome on board, Luke James. How's it going?
Good, man. Thanks for having me back on. Glad to be back. The first time was good, so really excited to talk about this project.
Oh, absolutely. So, I think the first thing that comes in, like, you and I, we've both covered Czarface before in some capacity, and we've enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know what you're going to get with a Czarface project when you go into it. You're going to get those hard-hitting boom bap beats, lots of great sample work, and also a lot of fun references, whether it's like wrestling, comic books, video games, all those sorts of things. So to anyone who likes that sort of stuff, like I'm a self-professed nerd, I mean, I came up on all these things, so their lyrical content is something I always like. It always keeps my attention, even though it's not too deep as far as concepts and, real life type of shit. But they always keep it fun. I like the sound because I'm a bit of an old head myself, so with this project I think they kept it pretty safe. They played to their strengths, they went with what they usually do, so I can't see their fans being too disappointed.
And that's the thing, like, throughout the past couple of records, like, Czarface, they played in comfortable, I'd say lightweight territory, but again, you got records like Every Hero Needs a Villain. I thought that album was absolutely freaking superb in terms of bars for what they do. But when it comes to someone like Doom, and maybe it's just me, and I've had, let's call it mixed experiences with MF Doom. I like some of his classics. I loved Mad Villainy for what it was at its time. But at the same time, Doom can be inconsistent. Do you think that's fair to say?
Absolutely. Like, I don't consider myself to be a diehard MF Doom fan. I mean, some people have him like in their top 3, their top 5, top 10. They really love Doom. And he's kind of hit and miss for me as well. He's got projects I like, Mad Villainy, Food, as well as Danger Doom. I thought that was a fun project. But he has quite a lot of work out there, and just, he's done a lot of features and stuff like that. And he doesn't always bring his A game. And that's actually kind of how I felt on this project. I certainly didn't think he was bad by any means. Like, he fit in perfectly with them, with the whole comic book aesthetic, the superhero villain thing that they all got going on. Like, that was perfect, and his rhyme style matched some of these beats. But this was not Doom at his best by any means, in my opinion. Or did you think it was?
No, not at all. And that's actually a good place to start this conversation off, because I guess when it comes to this sort of collaboration, you expect somebody to be able to go back and forth. You expect to be a little bit more chemistry between the MCs. And like Inspector Deck and Esoteric, they've always had that degree of chemistry. That's why it's made Czarface so compelling 3 records in, basically playing over a lot of the same material. But when I saw Doom come in, and it almost seemed like he didn't want to be there.
Yeah, this collaboration didn't hit as hard as I was hoping it would. Again, like, just to stress it, I don't think this was a bad project by any means. I think it's pretty good. I love Czarface, so I love this as well. But I would actually say this project is probably one of my least favorites from Czarface. I feel like the MF Doom collaboration didn't really blow me away like I was hoping for. I mean, this is kind of a dream collab that people were waiting for, and we really wanted to hear it. And it just didn't leave the impression on me that I really wanted,
And I think part of that is that they did, like, when it comes to Czarface songs that I really love, and I think about a collaboration I really love, I keep going back to a song like Nightcrawler, which they had from 2015. You had Raekwon on it, and it just goes hard as hell, the beat's aggressive. But whereas I look at this record, and you know what? One song I really did love on this record was Phantoms with Open Mike Eagle. And I'm a huge Open Mike Eagle stan. I will wholeheartedly admit it. I own multiple of his records on vinyl. He's an easy feature for me to like, and he can play to that comic book weird aesthetic as well. He's referencing Noob Saibot in his rhymes, and it's still smart enough and it's kind of self-aware enough to make that song work. But at the same time, when I see he's got this level of chemistry and vibe, and you wouldn't expect him to be a collaborator on a Czarface project. If only because Czarface is a little bit more aggro, it's a little bit more in your face and wild.
Yeah, I felt the same way with that feature. I thought it was a very fun feature. Again, coming back to my nerdy ways, I loved how he referenced hit points. I thought that was very cool, just a throwback to role-playing games, which I'm a big fan of.
Oh yeah.
But he does have a very very smooth, and his style, it's not too aggressive like what Czarface has, so there was a bit of a contrast there, but it did fit in quite nicely, and I actually like how the beat had almost a video game feel to it. It had a little bit of an 8-bit thing going on, at least I thought it did.
was kind of eerie, and I appreciate that. And I really loved how esoteric, or was it esoteric? Like basically in that final verse, every single word, or the majority of the words, began with an F.
I didn't even notice. Who was that on that one?
Hang on, let me check my notes here. That was esoteric. He basically, like, the majority of his words were they just started with an F to match that whole Phantom vibe. And it was just a level of wordsmith that I incredibly dug. And the song earlier, like, I will say this for Esoteric, the entire song, I think it was No Spoilers, and every single line was a movie reference to black cinema in, like, the 90s and the 2000s. It was nuts.
That was Don't Spoil It with Inspector Deck.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, that was dope. I like how he did that because he referenced a lot of the movies that a lot of us came up on, you know what I mean? He says one line, get rich or die trying, but never die alone. Love to my boys in the hood, I'm Ghost Dog. I mean, you get some classic titles in there. So I thought that was one of the better concept tracks. He had a very cool concept with that. So that one did stick out to me. And coming back to Phantoms, there was a line on there I liked where Inspector Deck said, Haley Joel Osment, I see fake niggas. That shit just cracked me up. Just, you're thinking of Haley Joel Osment, just that sweet little boy from that movie, and just the idea of him saying, I see fake niggas, that shit just kind of cracked me up, man. They have a lot of good references like that, and I think that's what's fun about this project. You always know you're going to get some laughs and references to classic movies, wrestling, comic books, all those things like I mentioned earlier. So
like
that's what really kept it fun.
The eye veins for Kurt Angle, like that was great.
Yeah, that was a dope one. There's plenty of them, a lot of good wrestling ones. There's another one on Astral Traveling where Esoteric said going up against him is like going toe-to-toe with Finn Balor and Samoa Joe. I thought that shit was hard as hell. And that was a very cool track too because you got the different beat switch-ups on it. And then you had Vinnie Paz going in on that beat. The beat, it wasn't too hard of a beat. It was kind of minimalistic, but I thought Vinnie fit right in because he does have that aggressive style. I mean, I'm a big Jedi Mind Tricks fan, so I like hearing him on there. And he matched up perfectly with what they were doing. That was a great collab. And that was a track that I really liked.
And that's the thing. I saw someone like Vinnie Paz, and he steps up, and he goes in so hard, and his voice is just a perfect match for that production. And I keep sitting back, and I'm like, why isn't Doom bringing that same level of intensity?
Well, I mean, that's just not really what Doom does. He always plays that sort of cool character. And one thing I will say is on some of these songs, I thought he fit nicely. Like on that single, I thought he was really dope on that. I think just that sort of fun, cartoony feel of the production, it really matched up with him perfectly. And there's another song on there that was one of my favorites. It had the same sort of thing. It was called Forever People, the one that had that kind of slinky guitar to it. It just reminded me of like a Spider-Man cartoon, like the old school Spider-Man, you know what I mean? Like a guy slinking around, ready to rob a bank or some shit like that. That's kind of the feel that it gave me, which matches perfectly for this project, you know what I mean? You even have some of those interludes where, Doom is meeting Czarface. Those were kind of funny, and the whole mask interlude as well. There's some good shit happening with that.
Now I gotta ask you this: did you feel that the number of interludes and how short some of these songs were, and how many they were spaced around the track listing? Do you think it kind of like broke things up a little bit too much? And that's the one thing I ran into. I kept on thinking like you have the line where you have Phantoms, you have Bombs Thrown, and you had a little bit of momentum building up, and that was the really first point where the record really started taking off for me. And I kept feeling that a lot of the skits and the interludes kind of broke it up a little too much. It felt a little bit too fragmented.
Yeah, they had two of the interludes, and then there were a couple of instrumental tracks as well. Didn't bother me too much, but I do kind of understand what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, it does split everything up a little bit, but it wasn't too much that it bothered me. I thought it did kind of fit in with the whole feel. It was kind of funny what they were doing there. So, it didn't bother me too much, but I do understand the point that you're making. And that's the case with a lot of albums. Sometimes interludes, they feel a bit unnecessary. Like, if those weren't on there, I don't think I'd really miss them too much. But, they're kind of cool for what they were. It's not like I'm going to go out of my way to listen to them every time I listen to this record. But, the first playthrough, I thought it was kind of funny.
Absolutely. And I guess the one thing that also kind of threw me, and this is the thing is, when you have lyricists as colorful as Inspector Deck, Esoteric, and Doom, you kind of expect that even if you're going to flip the instrumental a little bit, the fact that they basically copy-pasted their verses from Captain Crunch to Captain Brunch.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know what? Like, now I have issues with the first one because I thought the cymbal pickup was a little too lo-fi to blend well with the vocals, but that's me nitpicking. At the same time, though, if you're going to recycle your verses on a project like this, like, to me, that just felt a little bit slapdash. They could have done more.
I actually kind of like that track. Captain Brunch, I didn't love that one too much, but Captain Crunch I did. Esso had a good line on there. That was the one where he said, no mental strains, but I stick out like Kurt Angle's temple veins.
Yeah.
That shit's just hilarious, because every time you see Kurt Angle, it looks like his goddamn head is about to explode. It's just like throbbing, you know what I mean? That's some Megamind shit. And he had another line where he said, check for the double cross like 2 Chainz at Sunday Mass. I thought that was a hard line.
Yeah, and basically the ends off with his group text, and he's got members of Steely Dan and Boba Fett, like Groot, young Groot, and it was funny.
He does shoehorn some references in. Sometimes I will say that there are instances where it feels like the line isn't overly clever, but it's like, hey, here's something. Mm-hmm. It's almost like the member bear. You're like, remember that? Remember this guy? They're just putting that shit in there. But most of the time it is good, but just in some instances you kind of go, okay, I get it, I remember that.
Well, that actually ties to the song I probably liked the least on this song, and that was Badness of Madness, like pretty early on. And I thought the instrumental was cool. I thought it was kind of wispy. I thought it was kind of weird in that vein. But what threw me about it is that it didn't seem like anybody was riding the beat all that well. That was something that kind of threw me about this record. Like, when you have such defined grooves and so much driving presence as Czarface can often bring to some of this production, I was a little bit surprised how it can feel like they were a little bit slippery on some of the beats, and like Badness of Madness was particularly distracting there. I didn't think that any of them rode the beat all that well.
I definitely felt like this wasn't their best bars. Like, if you look at some of their other projects, I think they were rapping much better on pretty much all the other ones. Like, this one was still fun, and there's still tons of bars.
Yeah.
Even that song, there was one, this was one of the best lines on there, where Esoteric says, the way I kick bars and darts, you'd think I mixed martial art with mixed martial arts. I thought that was another good line, man. That was just funny.
Totally
martial arts, martial matters, right? And that beat, like you said, it kind of had like a horror movie feel to it. It almost reminded me of like Friday the 13th or something like that. I thought that was cool. But I do agree that the rapping throughout this whole project is not bad by any means, but it's not their best work. I always think, what was the album you mentioned earlier? That was the one that was their best one. Every Hero Needs a Villain. Like, I think that the beats and the bars, everything on that, like, I like most of their projects about equal, but that's the one that I would say is a cut above. That's the one, if I had to show someone a Czarface project, I think that was the best, just all around. The beats, the bars, the features, and everything with it was dope. But, you know, there were still some nice moments on here. I also liked on Metal with Metal, where you get, that beat is so familiar. If anyone knows what that sample is from, you got to tell me, because it sounds like it's from Chrono Trigger or Secret of Mana. It just has like an RPG feel to it. And it just was it was stuck in my head, man. I know it's got to be from something I know, but I can't place it. But, you know, there were some moments with the beats that I did like, but overall, this wasn't my favorite Czarface experience.
So if you were to highlight your favorite tracks, what do you think they'd be?
Bomb Throne, I think that was actually one of the ones where Doom fit the beat the best. I think he rode that. He was right at home on that beat, I thought. That
Absolutely, agreed.
That felt like Doom at his best. So, you know, when that single came out, I really loved it. Forever People, I thought that was one of the ones that Doom fit well. I talked about it earlier. It has a kind of that slinky feel to it. That was good. Esoteric also had that little shot where he says, my mind's bright, yours is dense, like Mike Pence's. That was, you know, that was a good one. Captain Crunch was pretty cool. Those were the ones that I liked the best there. And my least favorite would probably be MF Czar. I just thought the beat was kind of just warbly and repetitive. There wasn't too much compared to some of the other tracks. But, you know, you're still getting fun references to Game of Thrones and NBA players. So there's still some moments with it. But just for me personally, I didn't like that beat. But
yeah, and honestly, I would probably mostly agree with you there. MF Czar, it was fine. I thought the hook was a little stale. Again, I appreciate the NBA references. I'm not wearing any of my Raptors gear, but I can appreciate some of that stuff going in right now. I'd say obviously the worst for me is Badness of Madness, but favorites for me, I actually will say I like Captain Brunch a little more than Captain Crunch, if only because I thought the hook was a little more smooth and I just coasted on that a little more. Even if the verses are repeated, that doesn't bother me all that much, I'll be honest. I love Don't Spoil It for the movie references. Bombs Thrown, cool, absolutely. That's probably one of the best there. Astral Projection I thought was interesting. That's one we haven't really talked about. I thought the darker piano line that they had going on there, I thought, even though Doom didn't really rap on it, I thought that Inspector Deck and Esoteric handled it really well. And yeah, since I'm an Open Mike Eagle stan, I'd throw out Phantoms just because it was quirky in a fun way. And again, I loved what Esoteric was doing with his final verse. I thought that was really top notch.
Yeah, I got to come back to that track. I think it was Astral Traveling. Let me look here just to be sure. Yeah, Astral Traveling. Yeah, that was the one actually that had Vinnie on it. I like the line too. Deckhead on here, he says, "I blacks out like Donald Sterling." Like there's so many quotables on here. That's in reference. Remember the LA Clippers owner?
Yeah, I do.
Who got caught talking all that shit. Like he was with the black girl, but then he was like, don't be seen with black guys. Like you can fuck them, but just don't be seen with them. Which okay, whatever.
Then
That's
he
that
got banned for life.
Racism. Yeah, just that old school racism, right? So I thought that was funny. That was a good line.
The line that jumped out for me on that song was, what was it here? Flow like DiCaprio, wolf on all beats.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, there's so many quotables here. You don't go into a Czarface project expecting like crazy concepts or like deep emotional stories or anything like that. You're just getting a lot of clever bars. So there's a lot of good bars on that song. Nautical Depth, I want to shout out as well. I thought that beat was just really hard, very sinister feel, and I think this is another one of the ones where Doom actually sounded a bit more invested in it. So that was another good one.
Yep.
I mean, like I said, I think there are a lot of great moments on here, but I almost feel like I've listened to so much Czarface over the past couple of years that this one it didn't have the same effect on me. It was a little bit more refreshing with Doom thrown into the mix, although it wasn't the big bang that I was hoping for.
Yeah.
But they didn't mix it up enough that like I fell in love with this project. I still really liked it. I wouldn't say it's something that would make my end of the year list. It would probably be like an honorable mention. I'll come back to some of these tracks because I'm a bit of an old head. I like that boom bap shit and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But we've also been spoiled with some great boom bap records this year, man. Like Jericho Jackson, that was crazy. Evidence came through for us.
Oh yeah.
And then Apathy. I don't know if you reviewed that Apathy. Did you hear that?
It hasn't gotten to my schedule yet. That is something I'm definitely curious about. But for me,
Buddy,
like
put that up there, man. That might be my favorite record of the year so far. That and Jericho Jackson are pretty even for me.
Okay. I'll definitely make. So if you were to like score this, your score is out of 5. So
yeah,
what do you think?
For me, I'm gonna go with a 3.5, and that's usually like a 7 out of 10. For me, that's what I give to records that I really like. Like I think they're good records, but they're not enough that they would make my year-end list. Like I'll come back to a couple of tracks. I think they're good and they're definitely worth the time. But I generally save like my 4s and ups for projects that I really love. Like they're gonna make my year-end list. So this one wasn't quite there. I felt like I said, they didn't step outside their box too much. Not that you expect them to, so you can't fault them too much for that. But at the same time, it didn't really keep my interest as much as some of the other projects. But a 3.5 out of 5 is what I felt on this one.
So for me, I'm going to be a little harsher on this, if only because I was underwhelmed by what Doom was bringing to the table, unfortunately. I wish there was a little more intensity overall. And again, for as quotable as Czarface are, and they really are, like we've rattled through tons of great lines. For me, I wish they added up to more consistent songs or didn't feel like they were retreading territory that we've seen them do before. Kind of reminds me of, in a similar vein to what happened on that last Prime album. Like they had a lot of great quotable lines, and you could tell these guys can rap their asses off. But in terms of individual songs that stood out and really grabbed my attention, it didn't quite get there for me. So I'm giving this a very strong 6 out of 10.
That's very fair. Like I definitely agree with the things that you're saying. I felt the same way about that Prime record as I did this one. Like, I admit openly that, I'm a bit biased because I just came up on that old school shit. I love that. I love when people come through with the bars and, just clever lines. So I do tend to, lean more towards that. Anyone that watches my channel knows
not
people
wrong
complain about it once in a while. But I mean, everything you said is very fair. Like there wasn't anything there that I didn't think was out of line because I felt kind of the same way. Like it wasn't anything that new, but I still loved a lot of those lines. There's still some good beats. Doom wasn't as strong as I was hoping for, but there were still a couple of songs on there that I went through that I thought he did shine. But it's a quality boom bap project that I'll come back to a couple of these songs when I want something fun.
Absolutely, and I would agree with that. So where can we find Luke James on YouTube here?
Just Luke James BGN. You can look up Luke James Reviews. Twitter and Instagram is just at Luke James BGN. I'm also on Facebook, Luke James Reviews. You can find me there, so I can shoot you some links.
Awesome. And you know where to find me. If you guys like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. I want to go out and subscribe to Luke James. He's putting in a ton of hustle reviewing both the mainstream and a lot of underground projects that most critics would never cover. And I often go to him just to find stuff that would even be below my radar. And I respect the hell out of him for the amount of hustle he brings to the table.
Thanks, man. And I can say the same about you, man. This is the Canadian in us coming out, right? Just being that extra polite, you know. No, you're the better man. You.
It's
do
a
it,
Canadian
right?
YouTuber hustle. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, for real. But you know, I mean, I see the amount of work that you put in. You're always dropping tons of reviews. You're doing lots of other genres, and I respect that. Especially as someone who came up on hip hop and just loves hip hop, loves the old school shit. That's what I'm about. I like watching your reviews because you know you have a bit of a different take because you do listen to so many different genres. But you're always very fair. Like even if I don't agree 100% with everything you're saying, like I feel like you make your points very well. And you are very analytical, whereas you know I'm a little bit more chill with mine and to the point. I like that you really break it down and get into it. So you know you're running a dope channel too, and obviously people are watching this. They already know. They already know what you're doing. So keep up the good work, man.
All right, thanks a lot, man. And until next time, we got Luke James, and I hope you guys check out his stuff. Until next time, I'm Mark. You're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.